All right, all right, all right. Welcome to the show, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Learn Around the World's virtual field trips. If you never experienced a Learn Around the World program before, this is an interactive experience for everyone out there today. If you're on camera with us or if you're watching off of camera, you can send in your text questions live to the Q&A app built in at the bottom of your window, or you can send it into hashtag GEOshow if you are a Twitter user. Just make sure if you use the Twitter option that you use the hashtag GEOshow because I will not see it if you @ me. We also use Kahoot here on the Geo Show, so make sure you go to kahoot.it, log in with today's game pin, which is 4267392. That pin is also in your chat box, teachers, and you can play along as a one-to-one classroom or as a whole classroom off your teacher's device. It's up to you. And if you win today's quiz at the end of the show, you'll win a postcard from me, GOB, from the Learn Around the World Studios. Also, I don't know every single fact there is to know about elephants, but if I need to do some further research to get you a correct answer, then I will post that over at flipgrid.com/GeoShow later in the week. All right, guys, it is that time of the day. But first, I want to know, explorers, are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, GeoShow's now live. Let's do it. All right, all right, all right. Welcome to the Geo Show. The title of today's program is Asian Elephants, brought to you by Learn Around the World. And we're kicking off today's show with our first survey question. So go ahead and log in if you haven't done so yet at kahoot.it. Enter in today's game pin, 4267392. Again, that pin is in your chat box. Really quickly, if you've never used Kahoot before or you've never used it on the Geo Show before, we only give you 10 seconds to answer. Not a lot of time, explorers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So be quick with your decisions. Also, if you've never used Kahoot before, you're going to see a question and an answer up here on the screen. If you're looking straight down at your device, you will not see the question. You will only see color buttons on your devices. So make sure you look up here. And if you're quiet in class, you can hear me read the question as well. Well, we're going to go ahead and launch that first survey question for the day. If you're not logged in yet, don't worry. This first one is not worth points, but let's go ahead and do it. As they say, the show must go on. All right, our first question today is, we're talking about Asian elephants, and to do so, we're going to Thailand. But where is Thailand? Is it in red Asia, blue South America, yellow Africa, or green Europe? All right, if you said red Asia, you are correct. High five to you guys. All right, so let's find out, where is Asia and where is Thailand, if you don't know where it is located on our planets. All right, so on the Geo Show, we like to say location matters because we are a geography-based program. So let's go ahead and spin our big blue ball around that we're all living on, and we are going to Asia today. Specifically, we're going to Southeast Asia. So that's this area right here. And in Southeast Asia, there's a country called Thailand. Let me shade it in for you. It's this country right here. So I'm gonna shade it in. And what's funny about Thailand, and what's great to talk about Thailand when we're talking about elephants, is as I'm shading it in here, you can actually see it kind of looks like the side profile of an elephant, the shape of the country, which is kind of cool, right? So we see the trunk down here and the big ears up here. All right, so what other countries are around Thailand? Well, to the west, we have Myanmar, we have Laos, we have Cambodia, and to the south, we have Malaysia. So those are the bordering countries to Thailand. And Thailand's a great place to talk about Asian elephants. They live here in the wild, and many people own them privately as well. We call those domesticated elephants. So we'll talk about both of those today, and we're going to northern Thailand to talk about those Asian elephants today. We're going north of a city called Chiang Mai to the Elephant Nature Park. The Elephant Nature Park is an elephant preserve. They rescue injured elephants, and they also rescue elephants that had bad homes. Now, outlined in red here is the border of the property. So this is where the elephants roam inside this red area. And this green line I'm just highlighting for you, this is a river. So this river runs right through the preserve, which is very important for elephants. If you ever have any aspirations of having a pet elephant, you need a lot of water because they love to swim, they love to take baths, and they drink a lot of it. They drink about 40 gallons of water a today. All right, so when we look at the Asian elephant, they're not only found in Thailand. The traditional range, so that's this shaded area that has the diagonal stripes to it. So this is the traditional range of the Asian elephant through most of southern Asia. That's where they get their name from, the Asian elephants. However, we can see in the black areas. So this is where we find Asian elephants today in the wild. So you can see the habitat of the Asian elephant is dramatically less than it once was. In fact, it's so little right now that the Asian elephant is doing not so well, guys. The Asian elephant is endangered. There's only about 35,000 of them left in the wild. So they are not doing well at all. The African elephant is vulnerable. It is on its way to becoming endangered, but it's not there yet. There's quite a bit more in Africa. There's over 400,000 elephants in Africa. So a lot less Asian elephants than African elephants. And so that is the range of the Asian elephants. And in Thailand, there's only about 1,500 or so of those left in the wild. All right, so before we go and get our boots on the ground and hike around the Elephant Nature Park and see our Asian elephants, we are going to introduce our own camera guests that we have along with us today. And first, let's give a shout out to, let's do a random shout out to Pittsburgh Public Schools in Pennsylvania. A big shout out to you guys as well. So if you're on camera with us, I will control your audio. So just wait for me there. First up, we have Mr. Travis's second graders from Mattawan, Michigan. Welcome to the show, guys.
Say hi, guys.
All right, they're a little shy. That's okay. Does anyone from your class, do we have any researched fun facts about Asian elephants or elephants in general today?
We do.
Okay, go for it.
Asia elephants are found in India and China.
Right. So as we were just looking at the map, they're found in much of southern Asia and India. Actually, most of the ones left today, India has the biggest population. About 18,000 elephants live in India. So most of them live there that are in the wild today. All right. Next up, we have, let's see, Mrs. Babbitt's kindergartners from Charleston, South Carolina. Welcome to the show, guys.
Woo!
All right. They're pumped down in South Carolina. Do you guys have a fun fact you would like to share about elephants? And by the way, that's an amazing elephant, whoever drew that in the background. Awesome. Okay, go for it.
There's
what can I do with the trunk?
they can pick up
A penny?
they can pick up a penny with their trunk on a flat surface.
Oh, they can pick up a penny? Man, that is amazing. I can barely pick up a penny on a flat surface. I need help to do that. All right, so we're going to talk, we're going to see the trunks up close today on our hike around the Elephant Nature Park. So welcome again to everyone today watching on camera and off of camera. Let's give another shout out randomly to Pickerington Local Schools in Ohio. Big shout out to everyone watching from Ohio today. It appears we do have a no-show, so I will take, if you have permissions to be on publicly on camera and you want to be on camera, I have one available spot. I'll take the first person that lets me know in the chat box if you want to be an on-camera participant today. We're going to go ahead and start our virtual field trip with taking a tour of the Elephant Nature Park. So let's do it, guys. Again, we're going to northern Thailand. Hope everyone brought their passports today because abracadabra, we're in Thailand. All right, so if anyone's ever been riding in the car with your parents, you may have seen a deer crossing or maybe a horse or cow crossing sign. Have you guys ever seen an elephant crossing sign? Well, you have now. There's an elephant crossing sign because there are elephants in the wild and that live in and around northern Thailand in private elephant camps. And we'll talk more about those elephant camps as we go on. So on the way to the Elephant Nature Park, they show you videos that kind of educates you about the plight of the elephant. That means that because they're not doing well, and they tell you a little bit about why they're not doing well. And but then when we get to the Elephant Nature Park, it's about an hour ride, and we're going to skip that hour ride for you guys. That's the great thing about a virtual field trip, right? So the first thing we're going to see today is the loading dock, and at the loading dock, we get to see lots of food, right? Why do they need so much food here at the Elephant Nature Park? Well, they need so much food because elephants eat up to 400 pounds of food a day. say, what? That's right. They eat up to 400 pounds of food a day, the large ones. The smaller ones will eat around 220 or so pounds of food, but anywhere between 220 to 400 pounds of food a day. And here at the Elephant Nature Park, they give them corn, watermelon, pumpkins. They're trying to reach that 400-pound food mark every day. That's why they give them heavy vegetables and fruit. In the wild, they don't eat those quite the same. These are human-grown vegetables. In the wild, they eat more roots, leaves, stems, grasses, those types of things that they'll eat in the wild. Now, what's really neat, we're at the visitor center now. Don't worry, we're going to walk out amongst the elephants, but I want to show you something right here. When you come to the visitor center, they have a feeding dock. So we're going to feed our first elephant that we see today. It's kind of hard to see right here because it's kind of dark, but this is a red line that they painted on the ground, and it goes off this way as too. And what that red line is there for is for us we're supposed to stay behind that red line. And the reason we're supposed to stay behind that red line is because if you come up here to take a selfie with an elephant, which, let's be honest, right, it's going to be like one of the coolest selfies ever. So you come up to take a selfie with an elephant. Well, you see that big body part they're sticking through there, the trunk, the elephant trunk. We're going to talk a lot about it. In fact, it's so cool they can pick up a penny off a flat table. How cool is that? All right, so with an elephant trunk, they can move it from side to side, and they can get up to 6.5 feet long, that elephant trunk. They can weigh over 800 pounds. So what's going to happen if you're taking your selfie and they move that trunk this way? An 800-pound trunk hitting you in the legs, it's going to knock you over, and then you can potentially get hurt. So for our safety, we're going to stand behind that red line as we feed some of that delicious watermelon to our elephant friends. Okay, so as we wait for the rest of our group and all of our classrooms, look, it's huddled up. Now let's go out and hike around the park here. Now, when we talk about elephants, it's interesting to talk about management. When I say management, I mean, how do you keep them in a pen or in a preserve, as we see here? You know, if you've ever been to a beef cattle farm or chicken farm or pig farm or anything like that, you notice that they have gates, right? So you open a gate, you go into a pen, you close the gate so the animals don't get out, right? Well, there's no need for gates at an elephant park, and the reason is because they're so wide that you can just build these little concrete pillars, these columns, and the elephants can't squeeze in between us, which is really nice because we can just walk through there and no gate needs to be opened or closed. Now, elephants, you may be thinking, well, how come they can't just go over them? Well, elephants can do lots of things well, like swimming, for example, but you know what they can't do well is they can't climb and they can't jump. So anything that's roughly higher than 4 or 5 feet, you know, that's higher than their chest. If they can't step over it, then they can't get over it. So then they need to walk around it or move it with their trunk, their big, powerful trunk. Well, they can't move these. So this is how they keep them out of areas that they want to protect, like the visitor center. Also, there's trees they want to protect. You see those columns right here. And that's because elephants are so heavy, they can squish the ground, which squishes the roots, and it would kill the trees. And they don't want to kill the trees. They want to keep them here for protection from the sun. They like to have shade just like you and I. All right, so now we get to see some of our first groups of elephants. Now, elephants here at the Elephant Nature Park and in the wild, they live together in groups, and we call these groups herds. What do we call these groups? Herds. Awesome. Now, sometimes you may have heard, if you've ever read books about elephants, sometimes they talk about their groups as families. So you can definitely use the word family as well, because typically a group or a herd will be one family. Typically in the wild, they live in groups or their family size is around 5 to 30. But when they get really large, sometimes there can be multiple families. So herd is definitely the best answer that's going to be correct for all groups of elephants. And sometimes, especially with the African elephant, they can get into herds sometimes up to 60. It's a little bit more uncommon to get that big, but they can. And they have. And so, but the Asian elephants typically around 5 to 30 in their herd size. And these herds are typically all females, except for there can be young males. And that's because the boys, when they get around 10 years old or so, when they're at sexual maturity, they leave their family and they go live by themselves. But females, the girls, they will live in their family their entire lives. So this young elephant right here will stay in the same herd its entire life, and that would be the same for in the wild. Now, the groups are led by the oldest female, and we call the oldest female, or a ruler, a female ruler, we call a matriarch. What do we call them?
Matriarch.
Matriarch. So the oldest female in a herd of elephants is called the matriarch. That means she's the leader. She's like the queen, right? She's the matriarch. And that's because elephants have fantastic memories. And those matriarchs, they can, in times of drought, they can remember a long time ago, years ago, where they found a water hole, for example, during a time of drought. So it's good to have those older ladies in charge. Okay, so here's our first elephant that we're going to meet up and close. This is a girl elephant, and girl elephants are called cows. So what are they called? Cows. So if a girl elephant is called a cow, what do you guys think a boy elephant is called? Let's think about cows, right? A girl cow is called a cow. What does a boy cow called? Sometimes they have horns. Okay, a bull. So what do you think boy elephants are called? Bulls. All right. So the girls are called cows and the boys are called bulls. So this is a cow. She was rescued from a bad home. She had a circus, so she's not injured. She's completely healthy. We'll see some other animals that are not completely healthy. This is one of those examples. And if boys are called bulls and girls are called cows, what do you think the babies are called? Calves, right. So they're called calves. And this calf was rescued from the jungles of Thailand. You see how he has a bandage on his foot? He was actually caught in a trap. So he got his foot caught in a trap, and they have to rebandage his foot every single day. So it takes a lot of work to take care of this young calf. And because of that, this is a good place for him to be at the Elephant Nature Park. All right, so our next elephant that we're going to see, this is also a cow, and this cow has an injured leg, just like our calf had an injured leg, but this time their injured leg is because of something called a landmine. So if you've never heard of a landmine before, for our younger classrooms, you can ask your teachers more about them later, but it's a really horrible, no good invention by humans. And basically what it is a bomb it's buried underground. And so when something steps on it, it explodes. And then, so it may be a person or it may be an animal like an elephant. So on the borders of Thailand from past wars, there's lots of landmine areas. And elephants don't recognize borders to countries like people do. So the wild elephants, when they are roaming around in the jungles and they roam into these areas with landmines, they can step on them and become injured. That's what we see. If you look at this elephant to the right, how far her right leg is sticking at, look to the elephant to the left. This cow right here, see how narrow her back legs are together? This is a normal stance of an elephant. This right here is not normal, this leg sticking out like this. And that's because she stepped on a landmine. So it's a good thing that she's here at the Elephant Nature Park, because she would probably not survive too long in the wild in that condition. Here we get to see an older cow, and she is actually blind. And we'll talk more about this in a little bit, but the reason she's blind is, again, she was in a bad home in a circus environment. And what happens is there are domesticated elephants in Thailand. Roughly, there's about 5,000 privately owned elephants in Thailand. We'll talk about that in a future section. But one of the ways that you train elephants is elephants can get up to 8,000 to 10,000 pounds. And the way that you train a big elephant and get them to do things you want them to do as a human is typically is you make them hurt. You give them pain. So one of the traditional tools is you take this hook that has typically a spike on it, and you kind of jab them in the eyes, and you hit them around the tender part of their eyes to give them pain, to make things do to make them do what you want them to do. So it's a pretty bad, ugly way of training animals, and sometimes it's overdone, like in this case. And because of that, this elephant went blind over the years. And next up, we have a bull. So remember, the bulls don't live with the cows in the families in the wild. And at the Elephant Nature Park, they keep them separated in their own pen. That's because the bulls can become aggressive when some of the females are ready to mate. And so today I'm going to tell you a few different ways to tell the difference between an Asian and an African elephant. And here's one of those ways. Does anyone know what these big things sticking out the front of an elephant face? Does anyone know what those are called? Right, tusks. All right, so here's a difference between African elephants and Asian elephants. With the Asian elephants, only the boys, so only the bulls, have fully grown tusks. And with the African elephant, both the cows and the bulls have full tusk. Now, sometimes, like the previous cow that we just looked at, she has right here, if you look in the bottom right, you'll notice she has a little bit of an incisor coming out, but this will never become a fully grown tusk. So even though you see those little nubs of a tusk, the females, the Asian elephants, do not have tusk like the bulls do. All right, so as this bull walks up, often here on the Geo Show, we do something called deer ears. So I want everyone to take your fingers and put your fingers together. So you're making cups out of your hands. And I want you to put those cups, these spoons, behind your ears, and it's going to make your ear bigger. I call these deer ears. I guess on today it would be better to call them elephant ears, right? Now stick your elephant ears towards the speaker where you hear my voice coming from right now. That should help you hear better. And let's go ahead and listen to what an elephant sounds like. They communicate in several ways, and one of those is they make lots of different noises. Go ahead and give them a listen. All right, can you guys make the sound of a bull elephant? Go. Oh man, you guys are spot on. It's like we have a herd of bull elephants around us. All right, great job. So one of the ways that they communicate is by making noises. They speak to one another, and they communicate very well. They also have body language that they communicate with, and they have something called infrasound. Can you guys say infrasound? Okay, infrasound, you may have heard of something called like infrared lights. Maybe some of you have heard of that before. So infrared light, when we think about sound and light, it travels in waves. And our eyes and our ears can hear and see a certain range of waves. So if we look to our right, for example, let's just say there's a spectrum of waves that we can see that light inside of here, those different kinds of lights. Well, infrared light is a type of wave or light that our human eyes cannot see, but it does exist. And we can see those with tools and technology sometimes, or other animals can see them, like butterflies, for example, with light. Same thing with sound. So there's something called infrasound. The frequency is so low that our human ears cannot hear it. But you know who can hear it? That's right. Elephants can hear it. And with this infrasound, they can communicate up to miles away. So they can communicate over vast distances with this infrasound. Elephants are really smart. Earlier, we were talking about matriarchs and having very good memories. And one of those things they do with memories is they can remember other elephants. So it's commonly believed that an elephant can recognize up to 100 different elephants, and they can have relationships with those different elephants, even if they're from a different herd, if they commonly see them. So two of my favorite things to do at the Elephant Nature Park is to feed the elephants as one of the very fun things to do. And you can see if they can pick up a little flat penny, then they can definitely pick up a piece of corn out of your hand. And so when you feed them, they do recommend that you let them grab the food out of your hand and feed themselves. The reason is because usually, especially in Thailand, there's lots of bugs, and it's very hot and sunny. So we have sunscreen and bug spray on our hands, and we don't want to get that in their mouths. It's not good for the elephants. But the best thing to do, my most favorite thing in the world, from visiting the Elephant Nature Park was giving the elephants a bath. That's right. They love taking baths. And one of the reasons is because they give themselves baths. And so they don't need humans to give them baths. They can do it themselves. They're fantastic swimmers. And before we go up and look at them, one other common thing to do in Thailand is to ride elephants. So you can actually ride on an elephant, but they do not allow riding here at the Elephant Nature Park. So no riding the elephants. And the reason you can't ride the elephants at the Elephant Nature Park is most of them are injured, and then or they've come from a bad home where they've been abused by humans, and they probably would not let you ride them anyways. And then another reason, as we'll talk later on, is if riding is good for elephants in general or not. But the best thing to do here at the Elephant Nature Park, in my opinion, is to give them a bath. And so we'll go up and look at them up close and personal. Again, they travel in families or herds, and they love the water. Let's go look at this cow getting a bath up close. As we get closer to her, you'll see how tall she is. So elephants can get quite tall. So as we look up here, remember, elephants are the largest land animals in the world. They're not the largest animals. That record is held by the blue whale in the ocean. And even with land animals, technically they're the second largest, because the African elephant is taller than the Asian elephants. But how big can they get? The females can get up to 10 feet at the tallest. 7.5 to 10 feet is typically the range, and the males can get up to 11 feet, and the females, or the cows, can get up to 8,000 pounds, and the males can get up to 10,000 pounds. So it's a very large animal, but the African elephant, as I said, does get a little bit bigger. If you notice on this elephant, this cow, if you notice on her nose right there, or sorry, her trunk, and her forehead and her ears, you'll see this often with Asian elephants, is you'll see a pinkish color on their trunk and their foreheads. What they do is over their lifespans, sometimes some of the elephants lose pigments in their skin. So if you've ever seen an albino animal, for example, this will look familiar to you. So if you've ever seen an albino raccoon, for example, the little nose will be pink, because albino animals, when they don't have pigment in their skin, it turns pinkish. And that's why you see that here on the Asian elephants. Again, they love getting baths. They will give themselves baths, and they will swim in deep water by themselves. So they don't need humans to do this, because they have those big trunks. And so this is one of the best activities to do at the Elephant Nature Park. All right. And of course, anytime you're going to sling water on elephants, you're probably going to do it on your friends too, and get in a water fight. So it's just fun to do that at the Elephant Nature Park. All right, we're going to go ahead and open up the floor for some questions and answers. So if you're on the outside, make sure you get those sent in early and often so we can get to those. And let's go ahead and start with, let's go ahead and bring in Mrs. Flynn's classroom. Where are you guys watching from? And do you guys have a question for us?
We come from
We're from Sun Valley, Idaho.
Okay, Idaho. All right. Do you guys have a question so far about the Elephant Nature Park or elephants?
Do you have a question? No. Come on, Riley's coming.
We have one, yes. How big was the tallest elephant that you saw?
The bull elephant that we saw walk up, he was definitely the biggest. I did not measure him. I can just tell you that on average, Asian elephants, the bulls can get up to the height of 11 feet. So yeah, he was quite big. And I did not walk in the pen with him. So that might have been a little scarier with those big tusks swinging around. Let's see, Mrs. Worski's classroom is over on Twitter, and they want to know, or Layla, I should say, from Anaheim, wants to know, do elephants have a good memory? So often I get asked about when we hear things about elephants, like, for example, do elephants like peanuts? That's a myth. Elephants don't like peanuts. In fact, people have tried this. So if you give them various types of food, they do not prefer peanuts. So I don't know where that myth comes from, to be honest. And but the other one is, is when we talk about elephants having good memories. And yes, they have superb memories. And that's why the matriarch of a herd is typically the eldest female. That's because during times of drought, they can remember 20 years ago when they found a water hole during a drought. And the matriarch can remember that and lead the herd to that water. That's typically really important in Africa, for example. Okay, let's head over to Mrs. Let's go to Madawan. Looks like we have a question geared up. Go for it.
Can elephants suck up water with their trunks?
Yes, they can suck up water with their trunks. And we're going to talk about their trunks a lot more, but their trunks are super cool, right? Do you guys like elephant trunks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like elephant trunks. So some of the cool things that elephants could do, as we learned earlier, they can pick up a penny off a flat surface. How cool is that? They can slurp up water up to the Asian elephant up to 2.5 gallons. Right in that trunk. Now, one of the misconceptions, some people think they drink the water into their body through their trunk. They don't do that. What they do is they bring it up. It's like if you had a straw and you sucked water into the straw and then you spit it out like a hose. So what they're doing with that trunk is then they squirt the water into their mouths. So they use their trunk to bring food and water into their mouths. And so they will slurp it up. So it's kind of like a straw or a hose is something to think about. So yeah, so they do use it to get water. Great question. Let's go over to Mrs. Babbitt's classroom. Do you guys have a question down in Charleston? Okay, I'm not getting your audio. Can you speak a little bit louder for me?
How long do the elephants live?
Right, great question. So they have about the same lifespan as humans. So about 70 years is typically how long they live. And usually when they die of starvation. So, and this is how it happens, is because if anyone has any questions about elephant teeth, well, that plays a role right here. So elephants have 4 teeth at a time. So they have two molars on the top of their mouth and 2 molars on the bottom of their mouth. They're really big. So imagine you have 2 big molars grinding and grinding and grinding. In fact, in order to eat 400 pounds of food a day, they have to eat and chew food for 18 hours a day. Can you imagine chewing for 18 hours a day? I think my mouth would fall off. But they chew and chew and chew and chew. Well, as those teeth get filed down, they fall out the front of their mouth and they replace them with a new set of teeth. This happens 6 times throughout their life. So Asian elephants will get 6 sets of teeth, no more, no less. And once they go through those 6 sets of teeth, so 4 teeth times 6. So for younger classrooms, you'll learn about multiplication later. But if we just say 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 6 times, then we'll get 24. So 24 total teeth in their entire lives. But once they lose that last set of teeth, they get no more teeth. And that's typically why they die around the age of 70, is they die of starvation because they have no teeth to eat food with. Great questions coming from all around. Let's see, we got a couple more coming in here. Let's see, Mr. Newcomb's classroom wants to know, how long have elephants been around? I can't tell you when. I know that the African and Asian elephant, their last common ancestor was about 6 million years ago. The distant relative to both of those is a sea cow that came out of the ocean onto land. So that goes way, way back, but it's at least 6 million years. And here's something interesting to think, though, that the Asian elephant is actually more closely related to the woolly mammoth than they are the African elephant. So the African elephant and Asian elephant split apart 6 million years ago, where the woolly mammoth and Asian elephants are on the same side of their branch of the family tree. So how cool is that? Not a lot of people know that. All right, so let's go ahead and let's go back. We're getting lots of questions about elephants and different body parts and differences between African elephants and Asian elephants. So let's go ahead and bring those up. But first, we have a survey question over on Kahoot, and I want to know from all of you guys. We've been talking about there's different kinds of elephants, right? Well, I want to know from all of you is how many different species of elephants are there? How many different species of elephants are there? All right. Is it 4, 2, 3, or 1? All right, so I've kind of given it away over the course of the virtual field trip so far, but you've heard me talk about Asian elephants and African elephants. So there's two species of elephants, the Asian elephant and the African elephant. And even though they look similar, they both have trunks, they both have big ears, they both have tusks, at least the bulls do, right? But they are two different species. Remember, 6 million years ago was the last time that they had a common relative. All right, so just like you would say we're not the same as a chimpanzee, our common relative is somewhere in between 4 to 13 million years ago. So sometime in the same range, two completely different animals, even though that they look a lot alike, right? So when we look at those, they do have some subspecies. So that means some of them, sometimes they're small groups that are technically Asian elephants, but they are a little bit smaller. A good example would be the Sumatra Asian elephant on Sumatra Island in Indonesia. It's an Asian elephant that just doesn't get very big. We call it a subspecies. All right, so do you know that elephants radiate heat out of their ears? So when we see the Asian elephant, like we see here, you see them flapping their ears back and forth. And no, it's not because they're trying to fly away with their big ears. So what they're doing is they send their hot blood from their body into their ears. And then when they flap them back and forth, it cools off. It cools off because their ears are radiating heat. So that word radiating, what that means is when you can come put your hand over something hot and you can feel the heat coming off of it. You don't have to touch it. It's kind of like if you go in the kitchen and your mom's cooking chocolate chip cookies, you can just put your hand over the oven. You don't even have to touch it. You can feel the heat coming off of it, right? Same idea. So those ears are radiating heat away from its body. That's how it gets rid of some of its heat. That's kind of cool, huh? Their ears are also different from African elephants. So they're a lot smaller than the African elephant ears, and they're actually very floppy, whereas the African elephant's ears are typically a little bit more rigid. The African elephant also has not only a larger ear, but a little bit different shape. You have to use your imaginations a little bit, but the African elephant ear kind of looks like the continent of Africa, and the Asian elephant ear kind of looks like India, where the most of them are found. Remember, we said they have to chew for 18 hours a day. When in the wild, they aren't eating pumpkins and corn. They're eating bamboo, bushes, bark, stems, brush, grass even. And it takes a lot to feed an elephant. So they need a lot of space to live. That's why they're not doing well, is they're competing and they're losing, they're competing with humans for space, and they're losing their habitat. So they're losing their homes. Okay, another way we can tell the difference between African and Asian elephants is we can look at their feet. And what are we looking for? We're looking for toenails. What? They have toes? Yep, that's right. They have individual toes. Each foot has 5 toes in it. So that big old padded foot, if you were to look at the skeleton of an elephant or an x-ray, you'll see that they're actually walking around on their tippy toes. How funny is that? They're like big old ballerinas just walking around the planet. And so they have these toes in there, and that's why you see toenails, is because there's a toe in there behind that toenail. And so there's a different number of toenails that you find on African and Asian elephants. So the Asian elephant has 5 toenails on the front foot and 4 toenails on the back foot, whereas the African elephant, I'll write in yellow here, has 4 toenails on the front foot and 3 toenails on the back foot. So if an elephant, you ever see an elephant getting a manicure, you'll be able to tell the difference between an African and an Asian elephant. Or I guess I should say pedicure, huh? All right, anyways, so when we talk about the ages of elephants, remember we said they can get up to 70 years old. Well, how do you tell the age of an elephant? Well, it's hard to tell if it's, 59 or 61 or 3. But one thing that we can do by tell the general age is first we can look at their droppings, or elephant poop, for lack of better words. So elephants have very bad digestive systems, meaning it's not very efficient, it's not very good. So less than 50% of all that food they eat. So if they eat 400 pounds of food a day, that means less than 200 pounds of that food is actually getting digested. The rest of it is just going straight out, all fiber. And because of that, their digestive systems actually get worse the older they get. So when we look at the droppings that they drop, if they look healthier, meaning they're more uniform in color, they look fresher, that comes from a healthier digestive system. And when it looks like this, really discolored, that comes out of an older elephant. So if we look at this girl, this older cow, We can also look at the foreheads of the Asian elephant. So unlike African elephants, you can see they have these really big dimples in their forehead, these concave dimples. So the concave is something that curves inwards. And the older they get, the deeper they will get. So when we look at the forehead of this Asian elephant, you can say, wow, I don't know how old that elephant is, but I can definitely tell it's an older elephant. It's definitely a grandma or great-grandma or great-great-grandma. It's one of those for sure. That's when you compare that to a younger cow, like here. Look at her forehead. You see those dimples? They're not very concave. That means they don't sink very far into her forehead. She actually has a little baby here. Oh, little guy just fell into the fence. So elephants, we talked about how big the adults were, but the babies they're 200 pounds when they're born, and they're already 2 feet tall. And they stay with their moms for about 3 to 5 years drinking milk because they're mammals. So they get milk from their mommies. And so that means once they go off the milk, about 3 to 5 years, then mom will have a new baby after that. So every 3 to 5 years, they have a baby. Moms are pregnant. So humans are pregnant for 9 months. Elephant moms are pregnant for 22 months. That's a long pregnancy. And so they will carry their babies for that long. Typically, it's just one baby. They can have twins, but it's very rare. But typically, it's just one. And then we'll look, let's talk a little bit about the most famous of the body parts of the elephant. And that's right, it's the elephant trunk. As we heard earlier, well, actually first, let's talk about how big it is. So the elephant trunk, as I said earlier, they can get up to 6.5 feet long, and they can weigh up to 880 pounds. So they're a big old body part, right? And when we talk about how do you move around 800 pounds of trunk? Well, it takes a lot of muscles, right? Well, let me ask you guys something. If the human body has around 700 muscles in it, how many muscles do you think an elephant trunk has in it? Who here thinks you think it has more than 700 muscles in an elephant trunk, then make the sound of a bull elephant. All right. So if you think it has more than 1,000 muscles in it, sound like a bull elephant. All right. If you think it has more than 10,000 muscles, sound like a bull elephant. A little bit less, a little bit less. If you think it has more than 100,000 muscles, make the sound of a bull elephant. All right. I think some of you just want to make the sound of a bull elephant. All right. Elephant trunks have over 100,000 muscles in them. Can you believe that, guys? Over 100,000 muscles just in that elephant trunk. That's way more than your entire body has in it. Okay, so what are they doing with those trunks? We talked earlier, they squirt water into their mouths. They bring food to their mouths, and they pick up things. And the way they can pick up things is they do that. Remember that penny we were talking about? They could pick up a flat penny. They do that using this. This appendage is called a finger. They use their finger just like you use your finger to pick up things. And this is another difference between the African elephant and the Asian elephant. The Asian elephant only has one upper finger, where the African elephant has an upper and a lower finger. And that's another difference between the two. All right. So here you can see their ears, how they flap them to radiate heat, and also their foreheads. The Asian elephant has a double dome forehead, where the African elephant will have a single dome forehead. So that's another body part that you can look at to tell the difference. And so remember earlier we talked about them and how they give themselves baths. Well, what they do is they throw mud and dirt on their back, and this layer of dirt and mud, it protects them from the sun and bugs. So it's like a natural sunscreen and natural bug spray as well. All right, we're going to open up the floor for questions, but as we do that, we're going to do a quick old brain break, and I want everyone to stick out an elephant trunk straight out. Don't put it out to the side. You may hit your neighbor. So, and you're going to use your pointer finger, and this right here. So later on after the show, you and your friends can go and try to pick up things with your Asian elephant trunk. Remember, Asian elephants only have one upper finger, but then you can try to also be an African elephant. So you can stick out your trunk and have one upper finger and one lower finger. So you can use that thumb. So you can use your pointer and your thumb and now you have an African elephant trunk. So you can go play around and try to pick up things as an Asian elephant and try to pick up things in as an African elephant and see which one works best for you. All right, so coming in, we have, let's see, classrooms had to go. How many elephants are at the park? They're constantly changing, but I have to, when I was there, there were around 30 some, but I have not checked it in the recent months. So I definitely need to check it and see how many they have there now. But typically they keep them, when I was there, they were pretty much maxed out because of the land and resources that they have. Let's go over to, let's start in Charleston this time. Do you guys have a question for us?
I have a question. Grace.
Grace,
I have a question about tails.
How long are their tails?
Their tails aren't as long. You know what? I did not measure their tails. If I have to guess off the top of my head, I'll definitely post it on Flipgrid, get you an accurate length. But I would say they're probably around 3 or 4 feet long, not as long as their trunks are. Let's go over to Mr. Travis's class in Matawan.
Are Asian elephants bigger or smaller than African elephants?
Right. So they're typically a little bit smaller than the African elephant. All right. Over on Twitter, Mrs. Riddle's classroom wants to know, how long does a set of teeth last for? Or Elena wants to know. Great question, Elena. I only know that they go through 6 sets of teeth. And I think it would be different for each elephant and depending on what foods they eat and how they're getting grinded down. But yeah, I typically don't know. You think about even humans, right? So even you and your friends. So if you have lost your baby teeth and you've been getting your permanent teeth, sometimes it happens at different ages, even for humans, right? So an elephant's there's gonna be a regular X amount of years that they're gonna lose them, but it's gonna be a little bit different between each individual elephant. Great question there. Andy from Anaheim wants to know, how do Asian elephants protect themselves? So Asian elephants, or elephants in general, the African elephants would do this as well. They'll charge. So they'll charge people or whatever the threat is. And typically what they'll do is they'll pin their ears back and tuck their trunk in, and they'll charge you with their forehead. And sometimes they have tusks, sometimes they do not. Mrs. Wagner's classroom over on Twitter wants to know, how many pounds can an elephant trunk lift? Coming from Aiden. Great question. I don't know, like, what's the record that they lifted up with those 100,000 muscles in their trunks, but I can tell you it's definitely heavy. So I've seen them lift up very heavy things. I just don't know what the Olympic record for curling with the elephant trunk is. But we can see if we can find that out for you. Let's see, how long can Asian elephant wars get? I don't know. And let's see where I answered that from Layla. Okay, really quickly, because I did have a question, because we're going to jump right into our geo quiz for our classrooms that have to run. But I did have a great question. I wanted to address this. So Adrian wants to know from Anaheim, why did elephants get banned from the circus? Okay, so we're going to talk about elephant tourism really quickly in Thailand, but this applies to the United States and Canada and other places as well. So I know you guys, I've been to the circus before. One of my favorite things used to be to watch elephants do tricks. If you go watch YouTube videos, you can see elephants painting pictures. You can see elephants playing musical instruments. That's amazing, right? They are smart animals. But what we have to think about, right, is what kind of treatment did that elephant have to go through to do those things? Think about things that you don't naturally do, right? If you didn't want to do something, you would have to be forced to do something. And elephants have to be forced to do things. And earlier I alluded to that with those hooks that they poke them with. So elephants do not naturally play instruments, do not paint pictures. And when we talked to the manager, one of the managers at the Elephant Nature Park, they really stressed this to us. And they wanted to for us to share with you. We're not going to go through our whole interview, but elephants, they're losing their homes. And there's a reason for the tourism of elephants in Thailand in particular. That's because elephants used to be used for logging. So there was a lot of privately owned elephants that were domesticated, that they were like the bulldozers, right? And logging was banned in 1989. So you had a lot of elephants that were out of work. So how do you feed an elephant 400 pounds of food a day? That costs a lot of money. And so if you can't use them for logging anymore, you have no more work for the elephants. So how do you make money for them? So the two ways you do that is entertainment, like a circus, for example, or show somewhere in Thailand, or some type of tourism like a elephant riding camp. So these two activities are very popular in Thailand. In fact, I wanted to ride an elephant when I came to Thailand, but I did not because of what I learned. Not to say that if you ride elephants, you're a bad person. Or anything. I'm just going to share with you today that there are better ways and worse ways to ride elephants. So here's one of what we learned at the Elephant Nature Park. This is one of the not good ways. And it's these big elephant chairs. So here's the key. If you ever go to Thailand and you want to ride an elephant, it's okay. It does not make you a bad person. But there is this is the worst way to do it, because you see these big chairs, these weigh up to 300 pounds, 200 to 300 pounds. And then if you put two people on those chairs, so a full-size adult, so let's say we have 500 pounds on their back, it's not very good for the elephants. They aren't designed to carry weights right on their back. So when we see these types of camps, these elephants are typically overworked and they're stressed out because they have all of this weight on their back. And because of that, sometimes they throw people off and people get injured or they get hurt. So we were told the way to ride elephants is to ride bareback. Okay, so don't use the seats. So it's okay if you want to ride an elephant, do it. Go to Thailand, ride an elephant, support good elephant tourism. Just make sure you do bareback riding on the neck. That is a lot healthier for the elephants, and they'll be a lot happier that you did that. And also, it also helps their owners out. So an owner of an elephant is called a mahout. What are they called? Right, mahout. So mahouts, awesome. You guys speak Thai now. So mahouts are people that either own or work with elephants, and that helps them. It gives them a better life as well because they're able to charge more money. It's kind of like eating organic. All right, it's better for the elephants if we do that. And the other thing you want to look for is make sure they're not using those sticks that they poke and hurt the elephants to force them to do things. At the Elephant Nature Park, they use positive reinforcement. So they try to get them to do things, and they try to bribe them with something sweet. It's like if your parents say, well, if you clean your room, well, no, you should be cleaning your room anyways. But if you get an A on your report card, we'll buy you some ice cream or something like that. It's a reward, right? And so they reward the elephants for doing good things. But at the Elephant Nature Park, they don't force them to do things. And this is a great example. This cow did not want to come talk to us and hang out and take pictures for us, or pose for pictures, I should say. And that's okay at the Elephant Nature Park. Some of the other places where they have those hooks, they would jab it in the face until it came over to us. Now, most of the time it ends up being okay, but sometimes if you make an elephant really, really angry, 8,000 pounds can hit back. And so it's not good for the elephants or people in the long term. And the last thing, we're talking about circuses and tricks. Elephants don't naturally, they aren't in the wild painting pictures and playing instruments. So in order to get them and train them to do that, they have to go through sometimes years of bad treatment. So when we go and we support a circus or a place like this that has elephants, then it's supporting bad treatment of elephants. And we want to vote with our dollars to support good elephants like the Elephant Nature Park, for example. And so I went to this place. Again, this is before I learned about this, and this is typical. This was in Indonesia, and this was a show that was done with elephants. And, the thing about it, we want to see elephants how they are in nature, right? So I recommend everyone that you go to a zoo or preserve like the Elephant Nature Park to hang out and watch elephants. It's a lot better for them, and it's a lot better for us in the long run as well. All right, and that's a little bit about tourism and Thailand and with treatment of elephants even back home in the United States. All right, we're going to jump right into our Kahoot game, and if you have time to stick around, I'll answer all your questions after that, but we do want to go ahead and play for our classrooms that need to run on. So much to cover with our Asian elephants. Last thing, we'll do one more survey question before we launch in and start giving out points, and I want to know for you guys, is elephant tourism good or bad for the elephants? What do you think? Now, what do you think? All right, so a lot of people are saying bad. Some people are saying good. It's like I said, there's no right or wrong answer. They both have legitimate claims, and I go back and forth myself. But I will say it would be very hard to take care of those 5,000 privately owned elephants. They can't release them back into the wild. It would be hard to take care of them without raising money from tourism. So we would, so good tourism like the Elephant Nature Park, and my favorite one, which was Poo Paper Park, where they actually take elephant poo and make paper. How cool is that? And so it's a really cool park. All right, so everyone grab your Kahoot devices. If you're playing along today, every question from here on out will be worth points. So make sure you answer quickly and correctly. We'll skip this last survey question. It's the same one. All right, so here we go, guys. Geo quiz is starting now. How many species of elephants are there? All right, there are 2. Great job. Witty Eagle takes the lead. The Elephant Nature Park is in what country? All right, they are in Thailand. All right, great job. Keep it up, guys. Next question, Noble Panda. Because elephants eat so much food, they chew for how many hours a day? All right, there are 18 hours a day they are chewing. Dr. Panda takes the lead. True or false, you can ride elephants at the Elephant Nature Park. All right, great job. You cannot ride elephants at the Elephant Nature Park. How many months are elephants pregnant for? All right, 22 months. And today's winner is dun, 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 Witty Cheetah. Congratulations, Witty Cheetah. If you are Witty Cheetah's teacher, please send me your school address. You can do that over at learnaroundtheworld.com/prize. Again, learnaroundtheworld.com/prize. That's the URL in the bottom of your screen right here. learnaroundtheworld.com/prize. For everyone else, if you're heading out, have a fantastic day. If you have time to stick around, we're going to get to as many of your questions as we possibly can. And we're going to start doing that right about now. So over on Twitter, we have Mrs. Mick Grainer's classroom wants to know, how do Asian elephants relax? So they like to take baths to relax. They will also, for the most part, they kind of just stay in one place inactive, and they will kind of take naps standing up. They can lay down when they get sick. They're really sick, they'll lay down. But for the most part, that's what they're doing. They actually comfort one another as well, and they touch one another, and that's how they do. So when do elephants start growing their tusk? Coming from Anna. So if it's a bull, they're going to start growing them earlier. As a young elephant, as a calf, they'll start growing them. And you may have seen the remnants of a tusk with the little calf that we showed earlier as well. Do we have any other questions over in Charleston?
Oh, any more questions? Who's got a question? Sasha, you have a question?
I have one.
Tyrese, go ahead. Come to the camera.
I got one. They are the most biggest mammals.
Are they?
Are they?
All right. Well, Yes and no. If we said land mammals, yes, you would be correct. But is a whale a mammal? Okay. So a whale is a mammal, and because a whale is a mammal too, we can't say elephants are the biggest mammals or animal, because a blue whale is both an animal and a mammal, and so they are the biggest. All right. Did you have another question? Go for it. Okay. All right, you guys are cutting in and out a lot. Okay, we'll try to come back to you in a second. So also over on Twitter, we have, let's see, what other questions haven't we gotten to yet? How long do Asian elephants live for? Coming from Bella and Aiden. So they live for about 70 years on average is their typical lifespan. Also from Anaheim, what's the major differences between Asian and African elephants? So we talked a lot about those. The ears are different. The size of them are different. How many toenails that they have is going to be different as well. So yeah, so there are some differences. Asian elephants are hairier than African elephants. When we think about, especially when we think about the woolly mammoth. So they definitely look a little bit more like the woolly mammoth with the hair as well. African elephants don't lose pigments like the Asian elephants do. So they don't have those pinkish trunks and ears as well. So great questions. All right, guys, so that is going to wrap us up for the day. For everyone else that's still with us, thank you for coming into Thailand with us to the other side of the world. Don't forget to go out there, educate your friends and family about elephants and that they need our help. And as we travel around the world, or even when we travel around in the country and we go to see elephants, we want to support good places like zoos and preserves. And we don't really want to support circuses that have elephants, because elephants are not being treated well when they're asked to perform tricks, because that is not their way, and elephants don't naturally do that. And there we have it. So until next time, I'm GOB. You've been watching the Geo Show. It's a great big world out there, guys. So keep exploring. Until next time, bye.